Our next speaker is Tuomas Karmakallio from Finnish Virtual Reality Association. And after giving a brief overview of the association, Tuomas is going to talk about the future developments in VR. Welcome, Tuomas.
Hello. So, I'm Tuomas Karmakallio from the Finnish VR Association, and I'm going to tell a bit about our history, our current projects, and then go through a brief overview of the current use cases, mostly outside of gaming, since gaming is what we're all about right now at the VR Zone back there. Fiverr was forming 3 years ago, primarily pushed by Olli Sinerma from Mindfield Games. And that was the time the DK1 came out, then the DK2. We had roughly a dozen teams working on different projects. I was doing Kumon, Mindfield Games was doing Pollen, Windlands guys. There was an experimental comics project since they left. Geometrify, Geokone, recursive geometry. Paavo Happonen was doing his man-machine tank interface. And we were having these meetings, kind of closed meetings with guests from, for example, Iceland, UK. This was at the Theatre Museum. Doing sort of private, closed demos, getting to know each other. This is when we met the guys from Oculus. And earlier this year, from YLE, the Finnish Broadcasting Corporation, they made us an offer that we could have some free working space. And we took over first the little back room, started getting 1, 2, 3 computers in there. And as space started freeing up, we've been taking over the space more and more. And we now have half a dozen teams on site, 4 VR spaces, a larger workspace. We provide the teams computers, Oculus Vive and Gear VR headsets, 360 cameras, motion capture suits, access to green screen studios. So, we had our grand opening to celebrate the fact that a 100-year technology foundation gave us 250,000 euros to start pushing technology, VR, AR technology forwards in Finland. We had special guests like Ozo, HoloLens. We have a nice auditorium to talk. We had guests from Estonia, Iceland, UK. And with this 250,000 euros, we've been acquiring more computers, getting more teams on board, and it's really starting to ramp up. I'll show a few of the projects that have so far been completed. This is Miina ja Manu, an augmented reality children's book available in stores. Kumon is my game, the first Finnish VR game on Steam, released last year. Vertigo by Tuukka Takala. Let's see if we can play a short clip of that. Nope. Does this work? Nope. Never mind. It's this balancing thing that's been iterated a few times. I did a short art project with Lauri Tujula where we made a mechanical boat controller system recently. Tea Time. This is one of our success stories. These guys have really ramped up production. They've formed a company. They've got their first product out called Home Planner or Showroom. And let's see if I can get this video to play. Here we go. So these guys are sort of the crown jewel of Fiverr right now. They've completed their first project and they're working on new products as we speak. This is heavily business-to-business oriented, and you know, they're looking very promising. These guys are showing really how to do business here. I'll jump a little bit. We'll look at it for a small moment. This is also perhaps the first green screen video done in Finland, to my knowledge, at least at this technological level. The YLE studios are nice, great lighting, good green screens. We're missing the Muzak music from this video, I'm afraid. No worries. Let's see. Then there are a few projects from the first teams we have, still under work. This is Ego Cure, a sort of digital entertainment, experimental theater, perhaps you could call it. Sakari is working on Geometrify. This is the recursive geometry thing. Lollyhop is also progressing well. Then there's new teams working on stuff like this is Ghost Cities. And they're working in association with the YLE broadcast archives. The idea is that you fly around virtual cities and get access to old broadcast material through that. And there's some interesting experiments being done there. For example, old stereoscopic images can be made into point clouds. One moment.
Make sure that the volume is on the PC mixer.
No worries. Flight X, another game, slowly progressing. Let It Rain is an interesting one. This was voted the worst game of, I believe it was 2008, but then, or 2013. And a year ago it was picked up by Total Biscuit and it got hundreds of thousands of views, inspiring the developer to take it forward again and adding a VR mode. So, like I said, we have the VR gaming zone set up at the assembly this weekend. There's some of the projects on show there. Tuukka Takala will be showing Vertigo in a few hours after his speech. Gaming's been one of the driving forces behind this new wave of VR, without a doubt. Soon PSVR is set to join the high end of VR with Oculus and Vive. But really, these are not tools just for gaming or entertainment per se. Behind the scenes, VR never really died. It's been in continuous research and development in the universities and in certain industries like military training and medicine. And now that it's really becoming more accessible, it's raised awareness of its potential, and almost every week some advances in usage outside of gaming is in the news. And we're interested in both AR and VR, so it is the Virtual Reality Association, where there's a lot of overlap. And in the current software market, video games only account for approximately 1/3. There's retail, healthcare, engineering, military, real estate, of the already existing market. And the prediction is that healthcare and engineering will be the strongest fields of growth after consumer-facing applications. There was a video recently made about consumer-facing, where there's an AR override, there's a universal sort of AR internet, and it becomes sort of a nightmare where you're being force-fed advertisement. It's an interesting view, but what's really already happening? Shops with 3D maps, snack manufacturers making funny apps, event ticket sales giving you previews of your seats, clothing brands offering first-place seats at catwalk shows. There's a wide variety of sort of consumer-facing, people trying to push their product in exciting new ways. Custom showrooms, experiences for VR shopping, enhancing product preview experiences. Big companies and brands are starting to devote annual budgets to AR, VR, and 360 video. Medical training. Traditionally, students learn the theory and practice at school in very sterile, quiet environments. And here's an example of where they're simulating a helicopter on a battlefield. So they're trying to leverage more realistic crisis simulations, stress, floors tilting, guns firing as extreme examples. As we improve the visualization and manipulation of the VR and attach that to reality, the quality of both education and operation is improving dramatically. And besides the practitioners of medicine, there's also a big benefit to be had for the receivers of care, from systems like pain reduction to actually understanding better the procedures you're being subjected to, for example, in an operation, or the programs that you need to follow for post-operative rehabilitation. When the patient has a deeper understanding of what is being done to you, it promotes taking more responsibility of the aftermath of the traumatic operations or such. Education and learning is a big target for real-life VR. Basically giving people quiet personal space in which to practice, for example, maths without distractions. And these tools are enabling us to take pretty new perspectives on things, enjoy and study them in new ways. This is a picture of Madis Vasser from the Estonian EEVR, similar to our organization. He's doing a lot of psychological tests and making his own systems and running them in Estonia. I tried one of his applications recently, and it's a public speaking simulation where the audience is not as nice as usually here. Nobody's shouting boring or this sucks, like perhaps could happen in a high school, for example. And I've never had an audience that does that, so I tried it, and the immediate time the first somebody shouts something from this virtual audience, I was totally broke apart, my flow went haywire, and I realized that even though I'm used to speaking easily like this, that if I actually had the challenge of operating in a harsher environment, I would probably break down quite badly. So these are interesting training methods that can be done without the actual trauma of doing it for, say, 30, 15-year-old kids straight away. Business to business, fields of architecture, construction, data visualization, large team cooperation, industrial training. Factories are experimenting with headgear for workers to help repair machinery and get data on dangerous situations, warnings, such things. And these are mostly AR stuff at the moment. And the projection is that the rise of AR over the next decade or so is really going to be the icing on the cake. Once the helmets shrink down a bit, augmenting office spaces with virtual whiteboards is a realistic idea. Imagine multi-purposing spaces. You could change from a brainstorming room to a showroom to a relaxing area depending on the needs. Tourism is another area that's clearly starting to take advantage of particularly 360 video at the moment. And instead of just doing previews of stuff, there's also actually enhancing the visits to places like galleries, tour guides through cities. There's various, for example, musical guides in San Francisco where there's GPS tracking, AR tags, and synchronized to give the tours deeper insights into the material. One limiting factor right now is the lack of anything like a universal system. The fragmentation is a hassle. Each application is living in its little bubble separate from each other. The vision of how things should be is, of course, that more of the AR and VR material would exist in a shared space, a sort of AR and VR internet in a sense, where users would be able to select layers of interest to them or enjoy the full chaos of seeing all the virtual advertising overlaid on a busy shopping center, along with all the open metadata on all the stuff out there that is available, video feeds, GPS data, anything you can think of, open on the Internet of Things, as it were. The signs of this new Internet have still not yet appeared, but I believe it will be coming quite soon. And of course, the dream remains for technology to improve on the glasses to the point where they would be nearly indistinguishable from normal glasses or sunglasses, and provide both AR and VR in one package. So that's the sort of main focus of the talk, and to end off, I like to go through some of just cool stuff that I've been picking up over the last few months. Wearable Tech. This is Scully, a motorbike helmet with a 180-degree camera on the back of your head projecting into the corner of the helmet. Sadly, they are in financial difficulties. There's also options of adding GPS maps and such to the heads-up display. The Japanese have really been into telepresence and the teleexistence. This guy has been doing it for 30 years. This is from '89, and now he's gone to the Telstar 5. And the idea is that you're manipulating the robot through VR, and it's haptics. This robot is juggling or pouring marbles from one cup to the other with sort of advanced haptical feedback happening. This is the Genworth aging experience where, again, the VR helmet plus a bodysuit with adjustable hinges, resistance, weights, where you are restricted physically, and it simulates being, say, 80 years old, how you slow down, how things are harder, how life gets harder as you age. There's a couple of new AR glasses and AR VR glasses. There's actually dozens coming out, but here's a couple of recent ones. I think this was the Lumus. They're looking to get slick. I love the mirror shades. This is Computer. And let's see what else we have. Here's an experiment in music and dance. You might have heard the idea of a silent rave before, where people have headphones. Now that's going into VR. It probably looks pretty weird from outside, but hey, it might be cool. And finally, this is really possibly the most game-changing thing that's going to come out now. Is HTC is now licensing the development kits for people to build their own tracked anything, basically. Like now you have these tracked controllers. They're starting to train people to engineer their own anything. They take people for a week-long training course, and they're taking engineers and electrical design engineers to work out how to build these custom toys. And this is something that I believe will be taking sort of custom control systems absolutely to the next level over the next few years. The restriction of having these hand-like tools at the moment is clearly there, that even though everybody loves playing around with them, we can imagine that it's not just guns, but anything you can imagine, old school ship rudders, toys of any ilk. You can start adding pieces to yourself. The options are really quite limitless. We live at the moment in an interesting time. I grew up in the 90s as a cyberpunk kid, and I really feel that this is a moment that I'm living the dream. I'm having motion capture suits, VR. I have built the skills to actually be able to build things for these toys. It's amazing, and I really hope that any of you who are interested in development, if you are not already part of the FIVR Association, registration is free. We have a Slack where we exchange information, update on events. We are also glad to showcase projects you may have at our 2 bi-weekly or monthly events. Contact me through Slack, and I will be glad to arrange anything. There are also potentially spaces for teams to come and work at the Wiley Hub. We're also looking to expand slowly to outside of Helsinki. Any people from outside of Helsinki who would be perhaps interested in starting to run their own hubs, that is also an interesting area. I think I'm nearly done. Questions, please. As usual, Finnish question time is a pretty quiet time. Here we have one.
I know that, I think, was it Vive or Oculus Rift is already working on, that either Vive or Oculus Rift is already working on the next iteration Would you recommend waiting more before buying this stuff, or?
If you're a developer, don't wait. If you're a consumer, it really depends. I would say the technology is pretty damn fine by now, that it's great, and the content is starting to splurge. There's hundreds of games out, there's tens of applications. We're now just starting to see a wave of, for example, tools where you can do more art, 3D modeling, stuff like that are starting to come out. So if you're an aficionado interested in this area, I would not wait. If you're just a gamer, then up to you. Also, the PSVR is just about to launch, and that's going to be massive. They're promising 2 million units out by next summer. Alexi. Technical. Are you out of range?
Maybe, okay,
No,
here,
nee.
perfect. So yeah, some people say that, you know, the VR thing is just a stepping stone towards augmented reality. So how do you see the focus of the development? Is VR going to be a separate sort of direction of development, or does it lead to augmented reality?
I actually have this belief that they overlap so much that the way I think things should work is you will have a headset which has a seamless slider from 0, real, RL. Maybe you can have corners of vision, you can have opaque or translucent overlays of whatever opacity you like, sliding all the way to VR. So in that sense, I don't think the separation is sort of artificial. Already we're seeing applications which sort of play around with this more and more. So in a nutshell, AR is, the problem is that the technology is just, you know, it's going to take a decade to get to that point possibly. Maybe a bit less, who knows, but that's really the core. My vision is that it should be a seamless slide. Over there we have the next.
Are you at all worried that there is going to be some future dystopia where dictators say that everybody must have these augmented VR glasses on and the glasses sensor and add the elements that the rulers want them to see and hide the elements that they don't want them to see?
It's an interesting point, but I think that it's sort of the reverse, that, for example, policemen will have these devices, and imagine you're in Itäkeskus, and you're a cop, and you're scanning the crowd, and you see everybody's social security numbers, because they're carrying their phone, right? So they tag that, and they get people's ID running, if they see if there's, you know, haku päällä. And if somebody doesn't have that thing floating on their head, he's a tag, he's a mark. Why doesn't he have a phone? Okay? So you're not forcing the people to have it, but anybody is suspect who does not have the level of technology that will identify them in the AR overlay. This is one dystopia vision, I would say. But another way things could be used in this sense, where in an environment where everybody is expected to have one. Imagine a huge nudist love cruise where everybody must have them when you're out in public, and everybody's dressed in their own custom avatars, and, you know, nobody sees their full naked truth. And if you take off the glasses or whatever, you know, you're kicked out or something. Any more?
If I remember correctly, both Facebook and Steam reserve the right to upload all data about your movements and stuff you do with virtual reality headset to their servers. If you want to develop something for the Oculus Rift or Vive, and you don't want to share such information with Facebook, Is such a thing possible, or is that like automated in the SDK?
This is an interesting point, and I'm a little bit ashamed to admit that I haven't really dug into this subject very deeply, but I'm going to have to definitely put that on my hit list. I would imagine that some people are starting to investigate the situation more. If you go offline, use things offline, I would assume that you could then scrub logs easily enough. Steam VR is probably the more benevolent of the two, I would imagine. But who knows? Are you out of range again, perhaps? Is the light burning? Yes.
Yeah, as a developer, I can see the reason to add such information. It's probably the same like Microsoft with Kinect, like you just want to improve your algorithms, but at the same time, there's a huge potential for privacy breaches and
Indeed. I'm sure they all claim it is anonymized and so forth, but certainly the dangers are there that somebody can hijack that sort of thing. But again, on the other hand, this sort of thing is also already kind of an ubiquitous problem that the question is perhaps that does it really make a difference whether it's a VR device or your phone doing this sort of thing? Still granted that it stands to, it should always be the user option, of course.
Yeah.
More questions? No? Okay,
Alrighty.
but thank you, Tuomas.
Likewise.